Kastuba Das here with the big announcement for Wisdom of the Sages listeners. This August will be Ashram month at the Super Soul Farm. Simple ashram living, rising early, morning kirtan, yoga and pranayama, healthy vegan and vegetarian meals, farm seva and being immersed in nature, and then gathering in the evenings for kirtan and readings. Plus, each week we'll have a lead presenter teaching a different facet of the philosophy and lifestyle of Bhakti Yoga. Week number 1 will be the exceptional Bhakti Lata teaching a course called The Beauty of Bhakti, bringing the culture of love and devotion into our lives. Week number 2 is my brother from another mother, Raghunath, teaching Falling in Love with Divinity, the Bhakti Yogi's method for opening the heart. And week number 3 is myself with a course called Following the Path, examining the history and teachings of Bhakti Yoga. You can come for 1, 2, or all 3 weeks, and the pricing is by donation. For more dates and information, go to wisdomofthesages.com/events. Peace.
Live from beautiful Tuscany, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kastuba Das. Welcome to the show. We're also here with special guest, His Holiness, Sacinananda Maharaj. And we're here with about 70 people live. We're going to give you a little glimpse of them now. They're quite beautiful, interesting, inspired. And we are wrapping up our Tuscany retreat. And I will say this, it's been an incredible week. Despite the weather, despite all, because we're in the middle of a European heat wave, it is quite an amazing group. And I tell you, when you get around people who are on a spiritual trajectory and they're focused and they're trying to retain all the nonsense that normally pours out of the mouth. They're trying to control their mind. They're trying to regularly going around and serve each other. They're sharing their innermost thoughts and feelings with their Bhakti recovery group, and they're just and they're getting very focused. There's something that just sort of like lifts. Even if you're not like that, they sort of just lift you up. Everybody feel that? It's quite wonderful. And a big inspiration has been His Holiness Sacinananda Maharaj, who's joined us for this last weekend. Maharaj, glad to have you.
I'm also excited to be yet on another program with you, and I'm looking forward to the spirit descending.
Well, today we decided to do another Q&A day, taking questions from our live retreat. And Kastu, do you have any announcements before we start?
Yes.
Mary says yes. Mary, you have announcements.
I don't know. Mary says yes, so she's looking at me.
We have a Bhakti Recovery Group meeting at 9:30 today, and there's the Urban Devi Retreat via the Bhakti Center.
Mara.
You're welcome. Today at 11:30. If you go to bhakticenter.org, you can find it there. And there's no show tomorrow.
No show tomorrow. And then Tuesday, it will be Raghunath and Paramananda, all squirrels, all day.
Hold it. You told me you were going to do it with Paramananda. You didn't tell me it was going to be all squirrels all day. You didn't tell me it was going to be all squirrels all day.
Well, I'm just prophesizing what could happen. Okay, what is going on? Okay, I get it. That's Kastuba. I'm trying to get Kastuba in my frame. There's Maharaj. Okay, so today we're going to take a bunch of questions. And I do need to mention Ashram Fortnight. Ever want to live in an ashram, anybody? But not want to have to give away all your wealth and your car, your automobiles and your clothing? Well, we have the program for you. 2 weeks we're doing. You can sign up for 1 week or 2 weeks at Super Soul Farm in upstate New York. Go to wisdomofthesages.com and click on Ashram Month. And yeah, it's going to be great. We're looking forward to it. And we try to keep the prices very, very reasonable so anybody can go. And we got a great local Gujarati cook making lunch every day. We're really excited for that.
You look very excited.
All right, so let's start with these questions, Kastuba. And you want to call people up to your microphone?
Okay.
And Maharaj, there's nothing official going on today. They won't. We're going to pass them off to you, and then if you feel like, Kastuba, maybe you can give some insight on that. We'll let you feel them first, and if you want us to take some too, we can do that as well.
Okay, let's get.
Oh, look who it is! It's Isabel.
Okay, come on, right to the mic. I'll hold it for you. Okay.
You got to make this transition smooth, people. You get up there, you sit down, you put that mic in front of your face.
Here's our friend Isabel.
Krishna consciousness has given me the tools, excuse me, to navigate through many difficult situations with more intelligence and calm to rise above them. But at times I feel guilty that I am living happier through Krishna consciousness while others are suffering around me. The guilt sometimes is very strong when I see my own children struggling, especially my younger son who believes he has no purpose in life and has suicidal ideations. My efforts to bring him closer to God, Krishna, go unheard. And the more spiritual self-care I give myself, the more guilty I feel. Sorry. How does a parent continue to grow spiritually and closer to Krishna while watching their own children suffer? How do we stop the guilt?
Thank you.
Giving that one to you, Maharaj. That's a beautiful question.
Yeah, maybe.
Beautiful. Have to enter the school of compassion. Very often, those on the spiritual path are centered on their own well-being, and then they do feel guilt. But the moment you do something which is compassionate towards others, you will actually enter a balance in your feeling. I would like to give you an example. Just next door to Germany, a terrible and, let us say, totally surprising war exploded. The Ukraine situation. And it hit me very hard because I had believed we as a human race have advanced beyond the concept that war can solve anything. And I felt really miserable, and I felt, oh, I'm eating so well, I have such a good situation, enough clothes, and so on. And I began to feel strangely, oh, I'm really taking more than I should. I'm living so comfortable. Next to me, people are suffering the misery, and felt really bad. But then I began to do something to alleviate the whatever I could do to help alleviate the problem. And as I reached out by organizing buses that would pick up people from the border and bring them to places where they could start a new life as refugees, but nevertheless a new life, by organizing fundraising activities, global pujas, and so on. I felt really the balance restored. So try to act in compassionate ways towards your family members. Don't allow yourself being pushed in a helpless and hopeless situation. Reach out of this and you will see the cosmic balance restored. The next thing is ultimately something which you cannot control or navigate. Let the Supreme Navigator do this. Give it in the hands of him. Try your best and leave the rest up to the ultimate mover. These two things. Try your best to act out in as compassionate ways as you can towards your children, and then give the rest, which is simply not navigatable by you, into the hands of the one who moves everything. That is my little answer.
That was a little big answer. Haribol. Thank you. Great question. Akanksha. From London. Here with her sister.
Okay, Akanksha.
This was a question we were discussing over dinner yesterday. How much and what aspects of our bhakti practice and our own personal experiences on this path should we be sharing, and with whom? And this is in the context of going back from this retreat feeling very inspired, and for a lot of us feeling very inspired on a daily basis in our practice and wanting to share something of value with those we love and care about in our family, friends, colleagues, many of whom, may not ever have heard of this. So what's the right spirit and sort of practical guidance around this?
Thank you.
Great question. Great question.
You should share as much as the respective person can understand and digest and utilize. Don't give more, then they will have indigestion problems. They will not be able to do. Don't give less. And the difference between, what is too much and what is too little, that you will learn by experience. Try your best, really, and then, but the rule is always, when you share what only you like to share, you might be self-centered in your sharing. You might come over as a fanatic even in the other person. So always try to be with the person in his situation, his capability to understand. And it's a wonderful exercise, really. So here you are and you meet person A. So you go to in his life in your mind. I mean, go into his life means you try to understand him or her. Where are they at? What is of burning interest for them, or what could be of burning interest? And then from all take those spices, those what is it, ingredients which the person can digest, and you will be celebrated as a great waiter of spiritual knowledge, or a great sharer of spiritual knowledge. I would love to request Mr. Communicator next to me what he would like to say on this.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj. Depending on the situation, in one sense, we're always communicating what we're doing about bhakti, but you become expert at how much you give each person, and you have to know the people you're giving it to. It's like if you give too much of an herb, that will kill the patient. But if the doctor gives no herb, the patient won't get better. The yoga teachers also, especially if you want to give more than a physical class, you have to know how much truth to disseminate. And what'll happen is you'll blow people out. They'll feel, who are you, weird, trying to preach to me and join your weird religious rituals? Not interested. But at the same time, you want to reach out because you're finding something valuable here. So that's a very, very delicate thing to do. I know even sometimes with very people are very close to me, and I just got back from pilgrimage and I'm ecstatic and did all these things. It's like I try to explain it and they're just like confused. And then I just realized at that point, I just said, I'm not going to explain pilgrimage to anybody anymore, because you can't really explain it. You just really have to come and experience it. And those who do, they get the special experience. But as far as just regular people in your life, you got to figure out what is the common thread that we have in common. And we should always be thinking like this, as people who want to really give the holy name. First of all, I look at people as if everybody wants God. They just don't know it. Everybody wants Krishna. They just don't know what they think. They want to go on a ski vacation or to the Caribbean or a soulmate. They all actually want Krishna, and I'm convinced of that. And now I just have to figure out what is the bridge I have to create from that person where they stand to that person just going, Haribol. What are the places on that bridge that I have to fill in for them?
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Maharaj. Haribol, good question. Good question. Okay, so yesterday we had one of the famous Croatian twins. We had Road Rage, and now we're going to bring up Velcro. Velcro, come up and ask your question. Do you have the question, or you know it in your head? All right. So Velcro has been hanging out with devotees for a very long time.
Yeah.
And his brother got initiated, Maturananda.
Yeah.
And what do you do for a living?
We do computer animation and computer graphics.
Very cool.
Yeah. Great to be here in such wonderful association with everyone here. So my question is, out of all the practices that one can do in bhakti yoga, which practice is the most potent in controlling the mind?
Well, my mind's uncontrolled, so I'm going to pass this mic right to Maharaj.
The mind is either your enemy or your friend. The uncontrolled mind is an enemy. The controlled mind is your friend. So how do you bring this mind, which is sometimes evasive, elusive, and stormy like the wind, under the control? There are two things which Krishna gives as an answer to this question: how to control the mind, what's the most efficient way. He tells this right before the outbreak of the Kurukshetra war to Arjuna, who's there on his chariot. Krishna drives the chariot, and he knows he will drive the chariot into a storm of military activities. It will not be easy to control the mind for Arjuna or for anyone. So these are the two things which he says he gives. I think I'm good when I look in the camera, or should I look at Velko? Yeah. At anything or anyone. Good. It's more personal if I look now at Velko. So he says, Abhyasa, you need to practice. And he says, Vairagya, you need to know how to bring the mind back. You need to detach it. You need to let go of certain things. So Abhyasa refers to the practice of mind control, but it can also refer to a spiritual practice in which, and listen please to the to this addition, in which you absorb yourself. Especially mantra, we know, is meant to free the mind from unwanted occupation. That's one of the definitions. So get into the practice of chanting, but with absorption. There are various ways to do that, and I think if we would start, we would have to bring a japa retreat here into the computer, and there's no time for that. So practice. And then when you see your mind nevertheless begins to engage in unwholesome subjects, you need to know how to pull it back. The Yoga Sutras recommend a method called Pratipaksha Bhavana. It means reverse thinking. When you're, what does this mean? When you find out your mind is harassed by negative thought, at that time, you think about what is the result of thinking so negatively. You will, or materialistic, you will think, oh my God, I will become anxious, I will become unbalanced, I will maybe become spiteful towards others. So by thinking about the end result of the dangerous road your mind gets on, you say stop to the mind, and then you bring it out of the other, of this, you bring it away from this road by entering consciously a new thought. This conscious new thought should be something spiritual. Really, we had experiments in the Belgrade hospital with mentally diseased people, or how do you say nowadays, challenged people. We had this, and they were asked to, over a period of 2 months, engage regularly in mantra chanting, and they could actually catch their mind before it went into this downward leading spiral of negativity or problem or anxiousness or whatever their problem was. They could catch it by a spiritual practice. But you must absorb in the practice. If you practice here and your mind runs there, then the two are not together and the benefit will not be felt. Good. So stop and go. This is my answer. Stop means vairagya, detachment, and practicing opposite thinking, a better thought with more healthy outcome. And go means go into a new road, a spiritual practice which is able to absorb your mind.
Stop and go.
You have to be short nowadays.
Just too. Anything you want to add to that? Controlling the mind, what's best practice? What do you do?
I'm just trying.
You seem very controlled.
I'm not.
You're not?
No. I put on a show, but inside it's like, it's crazy.
Is that true? Okay. Thank you. Velcro. Very well. Okay. Next up on the show is your favorite nurse, Yogeshri, Cindy Lunsford. Come on down. You're the next contestant, Cindy Lunsford. And Cindy and myself and Bobby Marchand and Kostuba, we're all heading up the Bhakti 300-hour Bhakti Yoga Cultural Immersion at the Eco Village starting in the beginning of January. It's a real game changer. And Radhanath Swami is there practically the whole time. So if you're interested in getting away in the month of January and studying yoga philosophy, kirtan, asana, pranayam, it's such a wonderful program. And it's just in the bosom of the Govardhan Eco Village. Can you say that?
It's a little
bosom?
weird, but okay.
A little weird. A little weird. Okay. We're being cradled by the Govardhan Eco Village and all the lovely monks there in this wonderful eco village, cutting edge eco village run by the monks. But it's, you know, you go to India, it's a little crazy. India's a little crazy. We know that. We've been to India, but it's like a little oasis.
That's better. Just
So if you want to get it, thank you. You sign up by going to raghunath.yoga. Raghunath.yoga. And click on the link there. Or you can DM Hot
Cindy Yoga.
Say it. Hot Cindy Yoga on Instagram. Okay, Cindy, what's your question?
I have heard some people encourage chanting even just one round with as much devotion as possible, rather than 16 if the mind is restless. But isn't it the act of chanting with regulation that leads to this devotion, especially for neophyte practitioners? And what kind of devotion meter do we use? I understand that we want to keep the main thing, but for certain people, especially with certain natures, the regulations that Prabhupada insisted upon are the very practices that help us get to a better understanding of what the main thing is. From everything I've read, Prabhupada says chant 16 rounds minimum. When there is some seeming contradictions in teachings or instructions that we're reading and hearing, is it best to honor Prabhupada's instructions?
very good question.
Yeah.
You will be surprised. This has been the subject matter of one of my conversations with Raghunath, what is an appropriate spiritual practice for beginning yogis or beginning people? There is much to say, but in brief, the minimum which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu required of anyone who wanted to practice bhakti was 64 rounds a day. If you are a slow chanter like me, it will take you 8 hours to do this, just sitting and chanting. Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, also demanded this, but made an exception for those who would go out of the ashram and interact with the public, as you know, sharing Krishna consciousness, giving public programs, and so on. Now, Srila Prabhupada, he made it yet a little bit more accessible when he found out that people could not chant 64 rounds. In the beginning of when he started this movement, which has chanting as a central spiritual practice, he also demanded 64 rounds before anyone would be even considered for initiation. Mukunda remembers, he said, when I asked Prabhupada for how many rounds to chant, he said 64 rounds. There was a dead silence between us. And Prabhupada then said, okay, 32 rounds a day. I was still silent, knowing that I couldn't do that on a daily basis. Then Prabhupada said, at least 16 rounds. So you can see the practice is adapted or adopted to the capability of the practitioner. And the question which is looming in the consciousness of many who think is it wise to demand that everyone who begins should chant 16 rounds, or is it maybe better if they don't break their neck every day? In other words, do something they are not able to do, and start with 4 good and absorbed rounds. And then when the question of taking initiation in this path comes, when that is a relevant question to ask, then they should have worked themselves up to this minimum requirement. I personally belong to this group of thinkers who want to widen the funnel, so to say, so that a lot of people can start the process of bhakti, and then as they go deeper in the funnel, yes, it will become more focused and more precise and so on. This is a personal answer, but there is a lot of discussion going on this. Is it I answered your question, but what a wonderful question you have asked. It is a compassionate question in its ultimate essence.
Can I add a question to that question? I think the idea also, and perhaps Yogeshwar, you could, give me a head nod if you think I'm on the right track here. It's like when we start putting a number value on how many rounds we chant, why not a time value? Why not 2 hours of chanting? Why not an hour of chanting? Once you put a number, it puts like, okay, I got to burn through these to get this number done. What if I just said 2 hours, as many rounds or as little rounds as you can, with as much devotion? Wouldn't that be a better metric? Just trying to contradict 5,000 years of tradition here. It's like, why didn't they ask me?
The first thing I would like to say, anything which helps a person to enter the kingdom of absorbed ecstatic chanting is good. But we now, but when we think of, people who want to, people advancing, progressing, growing, then at one stage the question of commitment is very important. See it like a relationship, a friendship, which is maybe the first type of relationship which goes on is a flirtatious or flirt. Is it called flirt? They flirt. That is a type of relationship which is between people, or they talk from time to time. Maybe friends say, let's meet whenever the breeze is favorable for a meeting, and so on. But if it comes to a more committed relationship, at that time, two friends might say, our friendship is now beyond, has grown out of the uncommitted Larifari, that's Italian, relationship. I commit to this, and you will see other qualities begin to grow from the field of commitment than those qualities which grow when you just first get to know each other a little bit. There is something to be said about commitment. It really brings you to a total different set of purification of the ego. It brings you to a different level of trust between those either friends who go hiking together, or even partners, and so on. Commitment brings just totally different qualities out. There is trust. There's not this anxiety. This person will jump over the hedge in the next few hours and go totally unpredictable paths, and so on. So the same is with Krishna. If you can commit to a little focused spiritual practice, where yes, at times you go out of your comfort zone, beyond this, then some other realizations will happen. But, and this but should be written on a balloon in big letters, and then the balloon should be made bigger so that everyone can see it. This but means let people start where they can. Let there be multiple entry points. And this is one of the many advantages of Wisdom of the Sages podcast. If you would just read from the book and then close the book and say, that's it, folks, not so many could relish it. But when you give contemporary examples, when you speak about obstacles, which everyone knows, when you bring out different perspectives even on a spiritual subject, then all of a sudden everyone finds, here's an entry point for me.
Maharaj, beautiful again. Kosuba was mouthing secrets to me, and I'm trying to read his lips.
I was just saying there's some little thing I might be able to share. This.
Okay, please, Kostuba, please.
And I was saying, ask me. You're like, what?
Ask her. What?
But I'll share this because it actually, Maharaj, it involves two friends of ours, mutual friends that are friends of both yourself and myself. One I will name and one I won't name. But once I attended a talk by a Vaishnava, by a bhakti yogi, but from another lineage than the one that we're in. And we were introduced before the talk, and I sat right in the front, and he spoke. And as he spoke, it was very interesting because it was a large crowd, 100 or so people. And as he spoke throughout, he mentioned one thing that seemed to like subtly criticize our lineage. But nobody could pick it up, but I picked it up. You would have to be a bit of an insider to understand that this was seemed to be a little dig. And I said, okay. And then it happened again. And then it happened again. And it happened again. I counted it happened 11 times in this talk, right? 11 times there's subtle kind of. Now, as time passed, I went on to become very friendly with this person. We had a very, very nice relationship, and he had a very nice relationship with many people in our lineage. And I think he was doing something like a test or something like that, to see how I would react or something like that. It was interesting. We can't always understand the mind of different Vaishnavas and why he was doing this, but it was interesting. But one of the things that he mentioned was this very point, that he mentioned something about chanting a regulated number every day, and which is something that our lineage does. And he was mentioning that it doesn't make so much sense to do this. It's better to chant just a little bit, whatever you feel like, but to do it with real devotion. And there is a certain logic to that. It's in one sense, it's more meaningful to chant purely one time than to chant impurely 100 times. But I brought this up with another friend of ours, who is Eddie Stern, who is an interesting person to ask this question, because he's a yogi, and he was friends with the other person, and he's friends with me, but he's more of an Ashtanga yogi than a bhakti yogi. But from his perspective, he said, no, it makes sense to me that even if you're chanting without deep feeling, but you've made the commitment to do it regularly, because it's through that repetition that one trains the mind. And he said this is the same way in asana. If we're to do asana just when we feel like it, then we're not really going to make such steady progress. But if you make a commitment, I'm going to do this every day, even if I'm not feeling like my mind is peaceful in the asana and so on, but I'm going to practice. It's a practice, and through repetition, the mind becomes conquered. Right? And so I thought that was interesting, and it reminded me of one nugget that we had not so long ago on our show, which was coming from Henry David Thoreau.
Here when we're in Europe or Germany, we don't call them nuggets. We call them nougat.
But this was coming from, and when we read this, I was thinking that it might be something that you would appreciate, Maharaj. This statement from Henry David Thoreau. So he said, "You're familiar with Henry David Thoreau? He's not so well known in Europe." Yes. So yes. He said, "A single footstep will not make a path on the earth. So a single thought will not make a pathway in the mind." And I thought this, right? It's through repetition, bringing the mind to this, even if we're not feeling it, but making the mind go there can be very helpful, I think.
Wonderful. And then there is this, since we are discussing this, then there is this point of, I would like to again point out relationship to Krishna. When you show up regularly with a certain quota, and I'm saying this eventually coming there, no? Then you really show I am not indifferent to our relationship. Even if I don't feel, I really show up. And we all know this when we have birthday and a friend says, I have so many other things to do. No need for me to come. We feel, yes, for you, there is no need to come. But for my friends, it was nice if we are together.
Thank you.
Haribo. Beautiful. It's good to know that the podcast has such far reach. Someone here is from Alaska.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Carly.
Please welcome Carly from Alaska. Haribo.
Actually doesn't look like an Eskimo.
I'm a transplant.
Carly, what was your story? How you got to?
My brother heard you on Joe Rogan, and I was a yoga teacher, and so he started listening to the podcast. Brought it up a few times. Finally, I started listening.
You're a yoga teacher?
Yeah, I am. Asana.
So he's like, oh, this guy was talking about yoga.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, do you know about bhakti yoga?
Your brother got you into bhakti.
Yeah. So then I was getting on my plane in Seattle, and he calls me and he's like, "What are you up to?" And I was like, "I'm actually about to get on a plane to Italy. Remember that podcast you told me about 2 years ago?" I'm like, "No, I'm flying to Italy now because you told me about that podcast a couple years ago." So,
all right.
so I have a question that's a collaborative question from a group of us. So it got voted to be the voice, I guess.
Oh, I was looking at the one, how do you talk? But I think, was there a bunch of questions?
There's two.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can just. Do you want me to just ask one of them? Is both of them okay?
Just
okay.
go.
Okay.
Marla, you came all the way from Alaska. You get two questions.
Okay. So just kind of more the practical side of things, but how do you talk about bhakti yoga with people who have preconceived image of Hare Krishnas?
Great question.
Do people have preconceived images of Hare Krishnas?
And then kind of in the same vein, how do you explain deities to Westerners? There's things that just kind of kept coming up this week.
Sure.
Conversations.
It's for an outsider, it's real weird. For an outsider, it's real weird. Maharaj, you want to go there?
Yes, but I think you are all the time doing this. So, well, I would just say, whatever the preconceived conception is, you have to see, is that really true? Like when I am on an airplane and I'm always dressed like this, and I see in the beginning the stewards act in a certain way to me, very carefully, maybe because he is dressed so strange, he is a Hare Krishna, and maybe if I say, "Do you want a meal?" he will say, or do something strange to me. So they really act very, almost like a mentally handicapped person. They say. Then I act just the way I am. I'm usually joyful if I'm not on the mental plane, and I'm try to be human and full of understanding, and then it eases out. Maybe in communication, most of the time people have preconceived notions. They think when they look at you, he fits into this hole or that hole, and if you don't, and if this becomes clear in the course of the communication, then they're willing to deal with you as you are, and if they are interested, to perhaps ask you questions and so on. I have often this situation where people say, "I thought you are all like this, a little alien, total aliens." And well, you just talked to me about the science of football. So do you know? In other words, talk on their level, and then lead them to more than what they know if they are interested. But there is nothing else. There is nothing better. If you want to communicate, Srila Prabhupada, my spiritual master, once said, if you reaching out to people is so simple. Just show them that you are happy. That alone is so powerful. People will think, "Wow, I want this," and then they are ready to ask how you got there. But this is here next to me sits Mr. Communicator. He should say.
Hi, I'm Mr. Communicator. That's a great question. And you also have to be very integrated in sort of like who you are in this world, too. There's something to be said about just being confident in what you believe yourself to be and your relationship to the universe and the world and each other. And that confidence goes a long way as well. One time I played a show with Paramananda and our band in front of 25,000 people in Munich. And for the first song. It starts with a big drum intro and guitars kick in, and I take off my jacket, and I had a cordless mic, and my mic got caught in the sleeve for the entire song. I could not get the microphone out of the sleeve, but I just sort of walked around the stage in confidence. And people were just like, all right, pretty cool. I guess that's what they do. They just walk around shaking a jacket around. I couldn't, no, I just shook the jacket and walked around like that. I was very confident. That being said, when people try to put me in a box, I make them rethink it. What are you? What are you, a Hare Krishna? No, I'm a spirit soul. Isn't that what you are? Our philosophy is that we're all spirit souls, like I am and you are. No matter what religion we're in, we're spirit souls, right? And put it back on them. Now, we don't like to be put in boxes. I'm a spiritual soul. I mean, people might call me that because we chant these mantras. It's just a cultural thing. But the actual teachings are every living being, not just human, not just blacks and whites, not just boys and girls, not just Democrats, Republicans. Every living entity is a pure spirit soul. And most of us just forgot that. So we're just like sort of trying to remember. You know what I mean? Take it back to something really real that you can really identify with, that you can really get behind and say, no, that's what I am. Otherwise, they already got you figured out. You're trying to fight your way out of a hole. You're already in a hole, trying to talk your way out of it. Trying to have to explain, I thought you guys are in an airport distributing books. What the heck? Bring it right back to reality. I'm a pure spirit soul, and the yoga practice is to assist us to remember what we forgot. Stupid?
I like that. I appreciate that.
Like that one?
Yeah. Are you asking me to add to it, or?
No, I'm just asking if you like that.
That's great, yeah.
Okay, you keep it if you like it.
I will.
You use that. Because stupid goes all academic on them. Actually, I'm a Vaishnava.
It all depends. It all depends who you're talking to, I think.
Okay, wait a second. She came from Alaska. She gets 2 questions.
Oh, yeah, so the other one.
So the other piece to that was, how do you explain deities to Westerners or to people who are not, don't come from a culture where it's common?
Raghunath was quite confused about the deity thing in his early days of coming to the temple.
Oh, I was very confused. Matter of fact, I didn't even realize there were deities. I would go into that Brooklyn temple, and I'd just be like, ugh. They have a kirtan going on. There's pictures on the wall. There's an altar, a priest waving things. My attention deficit disorder mind, I couldn't even focus that there was an altar. I just walked around looking like this. And then for some reason, one of our friends, was staying in the ashram.
And she came out, she gave you a report?
No. It was another friend of ours from your gang.
My clique?
From your gang, from your clique. And he said, yeah, I'm staying in it. We were at some heavy metal show in Queens. And the guy said, yeah, I've got to go back. It's time. Time for the morning program in the ashram. And I was like, anybody can just stay in the ashram? And like, yeah. I was like, I'm going to move in that ashram.
Save a lot of money that way.
And so I went back and I told, because I needed a place to stay. I didn't even fully believe in it yet. I didn't even know anything about it yet. But I just thought it was sort of interesting. And one friend of mine, a lady that was friends of mine, I said, you know what I'm going to do? I need a place to live. I'm going to move in that ashram. And she looked at me, and I thought she was more into it than me. And she goes, you can't do that, man. I said, why not? She goes, do you know those dolls? And I didn't, because I never even noticed there was an altar. I go, what do you mean? He goes, on the altar, there are these giant dolls. If you live in the ashram, they make you dress the dolls. I was like, what? What? And now I love dressing the dolls.
Do it every day.
I fancy myself a doll dresser. So I think there is like level 1, like what? And then there's level 2, like yes. Because actually dressing the dolls, the deities, the concept of the deity worship is one of the most joyous things I've ever done in my life. It's such a deep, deep connection that that is offered in Vedic culture that makes me feel so connected. I can't describe it any way than that. I feel like it brings so much love into my heart. Now, I wouldn't explain that to somebody who is really new to it, especially if they're asking, like, why do you worship? You think God is a piece of marble? I'd usually say something like, isn't God everywhere? Do you like that one?
Yes.
Isn't God everywhere? Then why can't God be there? And because when God's everywhere, it's hard to focus on everything. So why not have a place to focus? This is my sitting place in the morning. This is where I offer a flower when I go for a walk. I picked an apple from our apple tree. This is, I put it on the altar. I like to have a place to focus. I don't have to get into the esoterica of worshiping the dolls. What do you think, Maharaj? What would you say?
Wonderful. This isn't God everywhere, like electricity is everywhere, but he manifests at a place where we can focus. I would like to add something for all of you people. I think that's good to stay there when a person just asks and just needs to remove a doubt and so on. But if you are a little bit more into it, you will see that if you go before the deities, if you sing before the deities, if you offer food, then a two-way road of communication opens. In other words, you're offering, your attention goes to Krishna, but that's not where it stops. He reciprocates in a lovely and beautiful way. One way of reciprocating is that you become clear what to do. I remember when I was diagnosed cancer, I went before the deity and I just prayed. I had just surgery. I had just gone through a surgery before that, and I was still physically and also mentally a little fragile. And I said, this is too much for me to be. And now, after the surgery, I have a cancer diagnosis. What do I do? And I felt really that something came which was not coming out of my own psychology. I had all of a sudden knew you need to fast. Just like when you have an unwanted guest, you don't give him anything to eat, then he will leave. If you have a disease, you just don't feed the disease with anything. Fast. Then I asked some other people and they said, you can go on for a long time fasting if you take a spoon of honey every day or two. And I did this and I followed this. And yes, here I am, healthy and kicking, so to say. Some reciprocation comes. So the deity is not just like a post box where you give your letters to Krishna, but the answer comes out of the post box back to you. So that is the law of, there's a complicated English word. I tried to learn it.
Reciprocity.
Reciprocity. Yes, reciprocity. Yes. Good. Yes, but it is nice to meet a person from Alaska. Is it inhuman cold there, or?
Right now it's nice. In the summer times it's pretty nice. Yeah. And our winter times they're cold and long and dark mostly. Dark is the hardest part, but it's beautiful right now. You should come.
Yeah, Wisdom of the Sage retreat in the wintertime in Alaska. This was
Some austerity.
It is very dark, and you are very bright, Carly.
The bright light of
Thank you.
Alaska.
Thanks to all our questions today. Haribo. Thanks for everybody for joining us, because to really make advancement on your spiritual path, you need questions, not interested in blind followers. You got to ask these questions, and you've got to discern, develop that sharp discernment. Otherwise, you just accept anything blind. You can be led astray like anything. Ask these questions, and these questions will bring you to the next level, and then you'll get more questions, and then you got to ask those questions. And when your heart starts to feel satisfied with those questions, you're like, something's right here. Something's right here. Thanks to everyone for joining us. Special thanks to His Holiness Sacinananda Maharaj again. And thanks to all these beautiful live people here. This is it. Remember, no show tomorrow. It's a travel day. And Tuesday, we're back at 6 a.m. with the Maha Squirrel Fest with me and Paramananda.